The second dice tower was a great one for me because I found a game that I really loved, and it was something that I never expected I would like. It was a GMT game, and it was Space Empires. Now, while I was there and learning this game and playing the heck out of this game, they were talking about a game that was similar to it. And I wouldn't look at it because they said it wasn't going to come out for a year or so. So I didn't want to get sucked into it and want it as much as I wanted Space Empires, which I immediately bought that same day. Well, the next year I went there, they said, well, we're sorry, but it's going to have to wait another year. Well, finally, this February, the game I've been waiting for 2.5 years to come out has come out, and that's Talon. Let's take a look at this great game of miniatures without miniatures. How does that work? Let's take a look. Now, Talon is a game unlike Space Empires, which is a 4X game, but it's actually a game of ship combat, which is awesome in my thoughts. Now, let's take a look at what it comes with. Now, first of all, you get this half map. Yes, half map, because the actual full map is double the size, and it comes with a half map that you can actually roll off the sides of the board and put this half map in there to even make the space even more bigger. This is just a huge play area, and you can see I can't even get it all into the camera. But we're going to look at everything on the half map. Now again, as always, I can't explain every rule, especially with this game. This game is a very deep game, but very easy to learn. It comes with a rule book that's only about, I'd say about 10 to 12 pages long, and very detailed, very beautiful. As well as a great playbook where you have scenarios, as well as how to interact your Space Empires with Talon, which is just awesome. What more could you ever want? It has different battle modes. It has a way that you can design your own scenarios, a campaign mode. It shows you different types of terrain and their effects. This is just an unbelievably well put together game that, again, another heroic effort from GMT. I've yet to see a game that they have underqualified anything. But let's talk a little bit more about Talon itself and some of the things that come with it. You get tons of counters. You get a sequence chart. You get a campaign chart that you can actually run through the entire campaign. And of course, these beautiful counters. And on the back, asteroid fields. Some have planets on the back, black holes for all the different units that you may not be using at the prior time. So plenty of obstacles and plenty of imagination, as well as being able to create your own scenarios. You get some ship charts so you can document and cover your ships. Combat tables so you can figure out how the weapons work, as well as you can see, the enemies and some more counters. And so let's explain the individual counters and what goes on here. In the front here we have our forward shields. We have the name of the ship. These yellow and red bars are charge bars. You have to charge them up in order to use the weapon. And each one of these symbols represents a weapon. On the left side here, on the right side here, excuse me, are the right shields. On the left side are the left shields. Now this blank space here is where the ship power goes, where the speed goes, where the turn radius goes. And I'll explain that very shortly. On the bottom here is the hull boxes. Once the shields go, the hull boxes. And as you can see, you have two boxes here and then some negative numbers. Each one of those become critical and start to take away from your power and your speed. And of course, on the very bottom here is the rear shielding. So let's take a look at this and see how it works. Okay, now everything is broken into sequence of play. There are impulses, okay, and on each impulse you start with impulse A and work your way all the way to impulse F, and then you go to the power phase, the reinforcement phase, and then go back to impulse A. So you carry all these actions out just in one round. So you have a player's initiative and a second player, then the second player. Okay, now we're going to talk about these spaces that I was talking about a little bit earlier. So right here, CV, which means carrier, which is right over here. Let's zoom in on this a bit and let's talk a little bit about power curve. Alright, because power curve is what really goes on here in this game. Alright, and just to pull that in there, perfect. Now as you can see, you have these numbers and you can assign these numbers to your ship. So you would have 4 power, 3 speed, and then 3 for your turning maneuverability. So that means basically when it comes time to move, you'd be able to turn 1, 2, and 3 if you wanted to. So it makes it a pretty elusive ship. And your speed, you can move 3 hexes, and 4, you would be able to distribute the power. Now what you would do is write these numbers right in this box here. I know, I bet you thought I was going to do it, but I'm not going to do it, because I know some of you have OCD out there, and I wouldn't do that to you guys. So what they want you to do is take this dry eraser marker and put those numbers onto your chip, and then when you're done, they're supposed to wipe away with a cotton ball. But I wouldn't do that to you guys. So they also included, because they know that some people don't want to write on their markers, this nice handy dandy sheet where you can write everything in along with your impulses and all your shields. It takes a little bit of work, but for some of you, it's a lot better than writing on your ship. Sorry about that. Back to our regularly scheduled review here. So anyways, as I was saying, you would distribute these powers. Now as they get damaged, you would get minuses off it. So once you got rid of the shields and did all the damage, then these negative numbers here would come off your power distribution. And that would be very bad. Now, let's bring in our other chart here. Now, you remember when I was talking to you about impulse track? Well, there's numbers all over these impulse tracks. So let's take a little bit closer look at them so we can fit them in here. Do you remember when I was talking about the impulse chart? Well, let's take a look at them. And let's just take a look at the closest ship here. We're going to talk about this transport ship here. And if you look, let's just use these secondary numbers here. You can you have 1, 2, and 2. Now, on the first initiative, okay, there's no 1 or 2, so that ship would not be able to move until impulse C, where if the 2 was in speed, it would have to move on that turn. Then, if it wanted to assign any AP, or auxiliary power as they call it, it would have to wait until impulse F to use the 1. So it would be able to use a turn and a move in impulse C, but wouldn't be able to initiate any type of power distribution until impulse F. Now let's take a look at the carrier here. The carrier here had a 4-3-3, remember? Well, for the initiative player with initiative, right off the bat they can distribute power, but wouldn't be able to move until impulse 3. So let's look at the carrier. The carrier, which had a 4-3-3, on its first turn on A, if it had initiative, it would be able to take and distribute power. Now weapons cannot fire until all the boxes are filled. So once the boxes are filled, then you can use that weapon. And here they have, for a weapon, and here, this little symbol here means phaser. So depending on the range, if it's within 3 hexes, so if these two here, let's take a look. So these two ships are actually 3 squares, 1, 2, 3 squares apart. And if this ship wanted to fire its phasers during its firing maneuver, it would roll a d6 on this chart. So let's take a look. Since we're 3 away, and it has phasers, it's 3 squares away. On a roll of 1, 2, 3, 4, it would do nothing at 3 squares away. Phasers at far range don't do much. It would need a 5 or 6. And here, it would absolutely do nothing. Now let's say that these ships were actually right next to each other, which is basically range 1. It would hit automatically, no matter what, but on a 1 it would only do 1 damage. As you can tell, that was a poor roll. If we had a nice roll like that, they would do 2 damage. And when you do 2 damage, you mark off on the shields. You take your marker and... No, really, I didn't have my fingers crossed behind my back. I'm not going to mark them. You can uncover your eyes and watch the rest of the review. Really. Now, as you can see on this chart, there's phasers, antimatter torpedoes, wave guns, and then you've got some really, really nasty things like the fusion cannon, which on a roll of 5 or 6 in range 1 can do 11 damage to a ship. That's just nasty. Once you break through and get and destroy all the shields in one particular area, and we're able to break through and take away the hull points into this little box here, this orange box, which we're going to zoom right in on, that is where you will roll criticals. So once all those boxes are filled and then you run into the critical areas, you have to roll on a critical damage table, which can be very nasty. You can have a core explosion, or all your shields can go down. You could be -1 on movement or turning. It could really be damaging to a ship. And all of that, of course, can be marked right onto this nice piece of paper here, because I know some of you will never ever fill in those things. But you can put the ship name, its hull on each side, as long as you can find everything. And as you can see, it has a place where you can put your power curve, and it follows you all the way through the turns. Just make copies of these. You don't get a real ton of them to start off with. So it's as easy as going down and having them Xeroxed. That in a nutshell is how to play Talon. So let's go up top and get my final thoughts. Wow, Talon. There you have it. I couldn't fit everything into this video, but boy, I covered as much as I possibly could. And let me tell you something. I waited 3 years for that game, and it was well worth the wait. I have to tell you, I really like what I saw. I like what I read. The only thing that makes me kind of wishy-washy was having to mark the counters. Now, I don't have OCD, and I don't mind marking and doing that kind of stuff. It's just, I know I'm going to play this a lot, and I got a feeling that it's going to ruin the counters. Especially if they don't come out with an expansion, or I've got to wait another 3 years for an expansion. I just can't do it. And if you have OCD or something that you don't like to mark up your pieces, you're not going to want to do it either. But they did include those sheets. It's going to take some work to transfer the data, but it's well worth it if it's going to make you physically sick to do it. Now, that's the only real negative thing I have about this game. The other negative thing is I wish they included more asteroids. What if I wanted to play with all the ships? Well, the planets and the asteroids and the black holes are on back of some of the ships. So I can't play with everything. I have to pick and choose. I could play with everything, but unfortunately it'd just be with no terrain. Or I'd have to make my own up. I think it's really something. It's another really, really great game. Jim Crone, He's done Ghost Panther, which is a great game, Space Empires, which I absolutely adore, and now this, where it's on a ship level. And all I can say is bravo to you, GMT. You guys always rule, always rule. And you thought I was just a miniature guy. Well, they are miniatures, but they're on chits. They play like miniatures. Well, I like other games too. But I have, all in all, I'd have to say that as far as this game's concerned, for me, this is a big 8. This is a big 8 out of 10, and I really like this. And I'm excited I waited until it came out to even get a real look at it. I knew I was going to love it because I'm a sucker for space games. But this here is something you can whip out and just have fun right off the bat. Easy to learn, easy to understand, complicated and strategic enough without getting so much. And you don't have to be intimidated by the pad and all the numbers and everything like that, because they're really, everything just fits very well together, just like Space Empires. If you like Space Empires, you're going to love Talon. So that's it for this week, guys. Let's see what I can dig up next week, and we'll see you then. Until then, I'm Rob Oren, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.